Classic Plus isn't just an idea anymore, it's already taking shape, and right now the community is louder than ever about what it should be. Because while players debate the future of Classic Plus, Blizzard just made a move that might tell us exactly where this is going. Turtle WoW, one of the biggest Classic Plus private servers, just got shut down, and if you've been around since Classic launched in 2019, history might be repeating itself. So on April 11th, Blizzard reportedly won their legal battle against Turtle WoW, and the server is expected to shut down on May 15th. Now, this isn't just any private server. Turtle WoW has been around for nearly 8 years, and it's basically been one of the biggest real examples of what Classic Plus could look like. We're talking new quests, new zones, expanded lore, custom systems, everything people say they want from Classic Plus. Turtle WoW was already experimenting with it. And now it's gone. And as sad as it is to see a community of almost 8 years go away, this is where things are starting to ramp up, because this isn't just about Blizzard protecting their product, it's about timing, because we've seen this before. Back in 2016, the massive private server called Nostalrius got shut down, huge backlash, massive community reaction, and then what happened? A year later, Classic WoW was announced. Then in 2019, it launched. So now fast forward to today, Turtle WoW gets shut down. Other servers like Stormforge are under pressure from just getting cease and desist orders, and suddenly it starts to feel very familiar. This cycle of history repeating itself looks like Classic Plus is coming soon, and we might get to see a Classic Plus announcement at BlizzCon 2026. But let's be honest for a second. Blizzard doesn't just let something run for nearly a decade and then suddenly shut it down. Turtle WoW wasn't new, it wasn't hidden, it was growing. The server had over 2 million accounts made, and it showed that players wanted something more. But now with what seems like Blizzard's legal battle against any Classic Plus type of server, these types of communities are growing away. And why now? Well, Classic Plus isn't just an idea anymore. It's becoming a real demand. Blizzard isn't going to let private servers define what Classic Plus looks like. They want control over the systems, the progression, the content, and even the direction of the game, while also making a profit from it all. But here's the part nobody is really talking about. Classic Plus isn't just about Blizzard adding new content. It's about learning from what's already been tried and taking in community feedback. We've already seen experiments through things like Season of Discovery, and we've seen it through huge private server communities like Turtle WoW. And the biggest takeaway? Players don't want changes, they want the right kind of changes, because if Blizzard gets this wrong, Classic Plus doesn't slowly fade out, it dies fast. However, to truly understand what Classic Plus could look like and how Blizzard handles its development, one must first understand that the idea of Classic Plus exists in the first place because of the player community. Private servers and player demand for more vanilla-like content has been around for a long time. Blizzard back in 2016 didn't invite the Nostalrius devs to talk about the demand for Classic Plus just for kicks. They did it to listen to a community that drove so much momentum behind a vanilla version of the game. These communities have a big voice, and when it comes to Classic WoW, it's the first time it's seen new ideas. You even have websites like the Classic Plus Project where players are coming up with their own ideas for dungeons, raids, and even class systems. New content is actively being created and talked about. These private servers and player-driven websites have been experimenting with new ideas for quite some time now, and if Blizzard wants to get it right, it would make sense to listen to a lot of these communities experimenting with expanded vanilla content. Because the truth about Classic WoW is that when it comes to which path it takes, the players are the ones who point it in the right direction. Hardcore is a perfect example of that. It started as a player add-on, Blizzard saw how many players loved it and finally implemented it as an in-game playable feature. So with community-driven momentum and the idea of an expanded vanilla WoW, let's talk about what would be the fastest way to destroy Classic Plus. Well, for starters, turning it into a vertical progression system. Because the moment new content just replaces old content, you lose what makes Classic classic. That's how you end up in the same loop of new patch goes to new raid into old content becomes irrelevant. That's not what people are asking for. What players actually want is horizontal progression, more reasons to go back, more systems that build on what already exists. Good examples were being able to go back into Molten Core for Thunder Fury, which stays relevant all through vanilla, Sod even had players going back into BWL for a scale off Nefarian so they could create Suzerain, which was Abyss Shield for tank warriors. You even have ideas where when a new phase drops, profession materials start dropping in old raids, allowing players to go back and farm them for new items needed for new content. Now, second is the fact that many players in SOD didn't want to wait so long to play new content like Scarlet Enclave. They were forced into playing Reforged type content like Black Phantom Steeps, Gnomergan, and Sunken Temple just to get sucked right back into the normal MC to Nax progression. It also begs the question, what happens after Classic Plus? Many have feared expansion type content that takes them away from Azeroth. And as great as expansions like the Burning Crusade are, as soon as you go to a different world, you say goodbye to what made vanilla. The other thing is that for a lot of players, layering is a really controversial idea, especially amongst the classic community. For example, I've been in Orgrimmar and Stormwind raids recently with over 200 plus players, and it feels awesome. But when you experience it on layer 1, among 5 or more layers, it starts to feel weird since you can just hop layers to escape the action. Layering exists in the first place to aid server health, but when it allows players to escape PvP, refresh mob spawns, or farm materials easier, it does make the game feel like a diluted version of what 2004 Vanilla WoW looked and felt like. Because at the end of the day, MMOs are driven by players. Encountering the other faction or seeing large numbers of players in one area makes MMOs feel grand in a sense, and being able to escape one layer into another makes it start to feel less like an MMO and more of a single player experience. The other really big problem with Classic WoW right now is RMT. Botting is ever present and players are more willing now than ever before to swipe a credit card for gold. Everything from GDKPs to the token has been a pretty controversial topic, and Blizzard has seemed to change their minds multiple times now in Anniversary when it comes to boosting. Private servers like Turtle WoW fixed boosting to the point where the 2 most used dungeons for boosting, like Scarlet Monastery and Zul'Gurub, couldn't be used to boost and skip the leveling process. They also had anti-cheat scripts, so bots weren't a major issue. Because MMOs like Classic WoW weren't made with the idea to skip the overall journey or pay to win. Seeing these RMT issues in Classic since 2019 have been very impactful to the game's progression, and these same issues could carry over into Classic Plus if not handled correctly. It would degrade the integrity of a game that has so much hype and community momentum behind it. Now, let's talk about the content side of Classic Plus, and this is where things get really interesting with ideas, because there are so many directions Blizzard could take with this. Take new zones, for example. You have players talking about should Blizzard keep new zones within level 20 to 60, or have players stepping out of starting areas like Elwynn Forest and Durotar into brand new zones. You even have the idea of new races, where the most common ones talked about are Goblin, Worgen, and some type of Elf variant. When it comes to class changes, you have players wanting a few extra spells and abilities added, while others want complete talent reworks, potentially adding in a TB-style talent system. It even goes further with something like heroic dungeons. Could it actually work in Classic Plus? Well, the idea kind of sounds off-putting at first, but if it's done right, if Phase 1 content is difficult enough, you create a real gap between hitting level 60 and stepping into raids. That's where heroics could fit. But if we go back to just the same old Molten Core and Onyxia, same Phase 1 content, then heroics don't really make sense, and that's the problem. Every decision affects everything else. And new dungeon and raid ideas is something Blizzard really needs to get right. Players don't want reworked/reforged versions of old content. We've already seen that with Season of Discovery, and while it's been fun, that's not what Classic Plus should be built on. Players want new experiences, new dungeons, new raids, new zones, things like Scarlet Enclave. That's the kind of direction people get excited about, not just revisiting the same dungeon content made into a raid. And here's the reality. There is a massive demand for Classic Plus right now. But if Blizzard gets it wrong, that hype disappears overnight, because this isn't like launching a brand new game. This is building on something players have cared about since 2004. So expectations are way higher. And honestly, Blizzard only gets so many chances with it. I personally think they only really got one good shot at it. So let me ask you, what would you want to see in Classic Plus? What would you want to see for new dungeons and raids? Do heroic dungeons fit in? Should anti-cheat systems exist? All of these are important questions, because at the end of the day, the community is shaping this more than ever. And if Blizzard wants to be successful with it, listening to the players is the most important factor in shaping Classic Plus. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for more WoW content, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh man, this is insane. There's so fucking many of them. Holy shit, dude. Oh, here they go. Dude, they came out like so fucking fast. Made a big mistake being first in line. Yeah.